I feel like LifeSim players take it to a place it doesn't need to go. It's like Krafton is not going to pay off your student loan debt. It's not going to happen.
Right? And also Krafton has probably emptied their marketing budget, so they're not going to send you a new gaming PC because they've already done that when the game was coming out.
Jesus.
The shade.
The shade continues. You're just a hater with no new gaming PC, and you're just jealous that you didn't get one.
You know what, Krafton? Send me a gaming PC tomorrow, and I will give at least one compliment to Enzoy in the next podcast.
How about that?
Balls in your court, Krafton. Welcome to Oversimulated, a weekly show where we spill all the latest gaming tea. I'm not Malcolm, president of the Anti-Cozy movement, and I'm joined here by my lovely co-host and leader of the hot people, Lady Drama.
Buongiorno from Italy. Hello, co-host. Hello to everyone joining us on YouTube, Apple Podcast, or Spotify. And honey, you're in luck because today we will be answering the age-old question. Is the life simulation genre beyond saving?
Yup.
So, babe, Inzoi, Paralives, The Sims 4, best believe we are going to talk about it.
And we'll also be discussing the death of physical games, as well as a major victory players have won against the absolute villain of the video games industry, EA.
Everything is awful, honey. We know them.
Absolutely.
Before we start, we have to give a huge thank you to all of our Patreons. Grazie, Patreons. Your support means so much, and we are posting bonus videos every week on Patreon, which means you can support our show and watch some exclusive content for as little as $5 a month.
And trust, the tea spilleth over on our Patreon. This week, we're holding space and having an honest conversation about our ups and downs as content creators, including all the friends and the enemies we've made along the way.
We're giving you so much spice. You might start feeling a little, dare I say, overstimulated. But stay tuned for all this and more after the break.
So, Lady Drama, I'm going to start off today by putting you on the spot. We have Enzoy, Paralives, and The Sims 4. This is the most competition we've ever had as players. Like the
That's
most
true.
options, the most choices we've ever had, which is amazing. But I wouldn't say that these are all created equally. Would you?
No, I mean, they're so different. And
They're so different. It's like that scene in Devil Wears Prada where she shows the two, what is it, belts? I don't
their
remember.
belts, yeah. And she's like, they're just so different.
But in this case, I really do feel like
They are.
we have very different options. Let's start with The Sims 4.
Dun, dun,
This came
dun.
out 2014, so she's been around the block several times. 120 times, some people might say. It is an aged game, experienced game. Do you think The Sims 4 has gotten better with age, much like a fine wine? Or do you feel like it's starting to spoil?
Oh, I mean, she is vinegar at this point, and I said what I said, and I meant it, okay?
Jesus.
Barbie. Oh my God, Barbie, the way we need you today, you have no idea. Today is the
We
day
need
for
you.
Barbie Jesus,
Yes, our savior.
our savior. I mean, I can't even, like, if you think about the whole journey of The Sims 4 and all the different, like, eras that the game has had, like, if you think about The Sims 4 beginning, and you think about The Sims 4 now, considering also the length, the lifespan of this game, honey, they could be two different games. Like, let's be clear. And I also think that in terms of DLCs, you actually do see this division because The Sims 4 starts with, your usual run of DLCs like seasons, pets, life in the city, all the classic sim style things. And then we are now in a moment where they need you to bundle things up because you have so many different content types, and they all tried introducing and fixing all different sorts of things. It's just so all over the place. And in my opinion, she should have ended a long time ago. Like, this is too long.
Absolutely. That's one big complaint I've heard a lot from players is they have introduced so many different systems with these 120 DLC that the game is very overwhelming to play. And I just want to be clear to everyone watching that Lady Drama and I are not Sims 4 players. I believe the last pack that I bought was Cottage Living, so that was a few years back. Do you remember what the last expansion or DLC you bought was?
I think it was either, it depends which one came out, which one was the last to come out. But I think it was either Growing Together or High School Years. Is
Yeah.
that the name? High School Years?
Honestly, there's so many different expansions. High School Together, is that what it was called? You bring up a good point because one major complaint I've heard a lot from players who currently play the game is that there have been so many DLC that all of these systems have been introduced, and it just makes the game feel so unorganized. There's just too much content in a bad way. And that's kind of what happens whenever a game lives on for 12 years and releases so many DLC.
That's crazy. And it's the spaghetti code of it all. This is The Sims 4 in a nutshell. If you don't know, listener, this is the truth to you. So The Sims 4, it has like this very faulty baseline that, it's the one game in the Sims franchise that actually rolls back things that we've had already in games that existed before. Like, just try processing this. Like, it's already a scam, in my opinion, from the get-go. But then it's the one that has all of these other batches of things they continued adding on top of this already flawed baseline. And so not only is it overwhelming and you get like you get very overstimulated. I did that. Yes. But also nothing works. So, it would be cool. It would be not cool, but acceptable maybe that one is like, well, they have so many things, but they all work fine. And then you can just pick and choose whichever thing works best for you and your type of gameplay. But no, the thing is, the more you add, the worse it gets. And if you've been through the journey, just like so many other players and us too, well, you know the result. Like, maybe one pack has one feature that you enjoy, but then it breaks everything else. So messy.
Absolutely. You're completely right that the foundation is just such a mess, and they've just been adding and adding on top of this broken foundation. And in terms of the 3 life simulation games, I think one of the games that has a pretty solid foundation so far is Paralives. I believe we both played Paralives. Lady Drama is streaming it on her channel here and there.
When she manages, when the internet allows her, yes.
And I think it's fair to say that we both had a pretty positive experience with Paralives so far.
Absolutely. I am the first one to say comparisons are tricky between these 3 titles. I'm including Inzoi in this conversation too. But I have to say it, like, my experience was very different. What I felt the first time I was introduced to Paralives versus the first time I was introduced to Inzoi. And I know we're going to go more in depth about this, but I just want to say that when I first played Inzoi, I wasn't coming from a place of necessarily of like, I have a bias against it. And so I'm here looking for all the things that are not going to be working, or I'm not here looking for the emptiness of the game, even though maybe I had my opinions about Crafton.
Death to all of them.
Sorry.
No,
was my finger slipped. That wasn't directed at Crafton or Inzoi. It was just a finger slip. My bad.
The Inzoi stands are gonna come for you, honey. But look, I tried. I wanted to like her. My thing was, I got the game, I played it on stream. You can watch my live reaction to the game. And then the only thing I kept doing was going to the character creator, making some characters, and that's it. I didn't feel the vibe, you know? Yes.
Of Inzoi, you're saying, right?
Of Enzo, yeah. And
Yeah.
then Paralives was it was a very different feeling. Very different.
Same for me. It was a very different gameplay experience. And I think, look, I haven't played Inzoi since the Chahaya update. So that was, I believe, fall of last year. So it's been almost a year since I've touched Inzoi, admittedly. So I don't want to bash it and say the game is still an empty, shallow mess. But whenever I did play it, even after they released that expansion for the game, it was not an enjoyable experience. It felt very lackluster and empty. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I don't like Krafton. I think Krafton can go to hell. It's not a good company. Even if Inzoi was a good game, I don't even think I would want to play it and promote it or advertise it, play it on my channel, because I just do not support anything Krafton is doing. And to support Inzoi is to support Krafton. That is the truth. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but they're the same company. Inzoi is a studio that was created and established and controlled, fully owned by Krafton. But at the end of the day, even if you don't care about what company you're supporting, if I try to take that out of the equation, for me, I do think I had a much better time playing Paralives. I felt like there was a lot of character and a lot of charm to that game. And it was just a fun experience. I will say that I haven't really been going back to it so much recently after like the first week or two that it came out, but it is an early access game, and I'm really excited to go back to it, you know, in a few weeks after there's been a few updates. But I do think that raises an important point, and it's one that I've seen people discussing online quite a bit. And it's about early access and why some people are holding Paralives to a different standard than they are Inzoi. So, Lady Drama, why do you think that is? Why do you think people are holding these games to different standards, even though they're both early access?
Can I just do a little moment of shade towards The Sims 4 and just ask the people, our dear listeners, was The Sims 4 also an early access game? And honey, has the early access ended, or are we still going through that experimental time with The Sims 4? I'm just saying.
It's a good point.
The different reception stems from 2 points mainly. So you cannot put these two titles, like compare them one against the other, and not consider the development of the two games and who is behind the development of these two games. Because it is a different story. And that's why I think the vibes are also different, because it's a very different way of working, right? Even just put yourself in the shoes of somebody that is working on one project or the other. Your experience is going to be so different because your timeline is going to be so different. And in my opinion, the aspects you focus on are very different if you're coming from an indie studio or if you're coming from a very big company like Krafton.
So we have Paralives, the indie studio, and then we have Inzoi, which is developed and published by a massive multi-billion-dollar corporation that has over 100 employees on that team. Plus, let's not forget, Krafton is an AI-first company. So they have an entire AI department that is also working on this game. So we have two very different games and game studios here, Krafton and Paralives. And I believe it is not fair to compare a tiny indie studio to a mega corporation. I have done, you know, videos about both of these games. I did kind of like a first impression / review of Paralives. I did the same thing with Inzoi. I don't know if you've noticed this in your experience covering both games. I had several people who were extremely angry that they felt I was going easy on Paralives and giving Inzoi a tough time. But my point of view, and this might be yours as well, I don't hold a game made by an indie studio to the same standard as I hold a game made by a mega corporation worth billions, because why would I?
Exactly. if you just decide to go and judge them without considering what's behind, I mean, you can always do that as an individual, like, player, and you can say, I prefer this over that one. Nobody's questioning that, because when it comes to personal taste, like, we can all play different things. And I do believe that having more titles within one genre, which is what we're seeing, is overall a positive thing, because we get to do this. We can say, I prefer Inzoi, I prefer Paralives, and that is like personal taste, and that's okay. And thank
And thank
God,
God that we actually don't just have The Sims to say, I prefer this game. Thank God we have choices now.
yes,
Thank
choice
you.
is freedom.
Jesus.
Thank you,
Oh,
Jesus.
thank you, Jesus.
Yes. But I also want to say this, the feedback from the community when it comes to this conversation, like, especially from creators, making this difference and saying, I have to consider that Paralives is made by an independent team and Inzo is not. I also don't want it to seem as though we are looking at Paralives and Paralives is a objective bad game and we are all just blinded because we want to endorse indie teams. Because for me, honey, that's not what's happening over here. If I had launched Paralives and I hadn't enjoyed it, I would have said that, even if it was made by an indie team. That's true to me. I would have still said, look, I appreciate what the team is doing, but this is not my cup of tea. That's not
Yeah.
controversial. You can say that, like, personal taste, right? So from my perspective, I think comparing them, you have to consider that they're made by different entities. Yes. But when giving your opinion, and for me, when I gave my opinion, this mattered, but also the game itself mattered too. So when I say I really enjoyed Paralives, although I endorse the team and their work, and I appreciate that they are an indie team instead of being a gigantic, greedy and money hungry corporation, I still like the game because I like the game. I don't have the bias just because I am such a fan of independent projects. You know what I mean?
Yes. Even though the games are made by very different studios, it doesn't mean that we're just saying, oh, because you're an indie game, you're automatically good, right?
Exactly.
However, context matters. And we as consumers, we as players, don't always consider the context. And I believe that we've seen that a lot with The Sims 4 over the years. People who treat the Sims team, Maxis, which doesn't even exist anymore, it's just EA, literally. But people
Mm-hmm.
treat them like they're a small little indie team who can do no wrong. Feel bad for the developers.
Devs. We love the devs. We love the devs. We just hate corporate greed. This is a quote. Tell me if you can guess from who.
I feel like I've heard that one before. Instead of holding them to the standard that we should hold a $40 billion corporation with the resources of a $40 billion corporation. That is why it does matter what studio is making these games and what kind of company is making these games, as well as their values. Because Paralives is a studio that has come out and said, we don't use AI to make our game.
Right.
That matters. We hire real artists. We have a real sound designer. We have real people making music for our game. Inzoi has AI generated art in the game. Like, as much as the fans want to proclaim that the AI is optional in Inzoi, it's literally built into the game. So we can hold the games and the companies making these games to different standards, also based on what we value as players and consumers and what's important to us. And that's something I think we should do. We should do more often with video games.
That's absolutely true. Yeah, even because we also have access to all of this information. Society used to see gaming and gaming companies and gaming studios 15, 20 years ago was different than what we have right now. So that's absolutely true. Context, it does matter, especially within the Sims community, where you have, like we mentioned before, this very parasocial relationship with Maxis, with the team that makes the game. You cannot tell me that we've all, like, grown up with Maxis and the team that makes The Sims and Will Wright and knowing all of these things about them. But then you're having a conversation about Inzoi versus Paralives and you're like, I don't want to consider the context and the studios that are making these two games. Because I feel that that's the ultimate like takeaway that people get from this conversation is like, well, people just want to shit on Inzoi because it's made by Krafton, even though Inzoi is better than Paralives, and they just want to justify Paralives because Paralives is made by an indie team. And I don't know, that is like such a blanket statement.
To expand on a point that you made, there are a lot of Sims players in particular who have this very parasocial relationship with the developers of that game because that franchise has been around for over 25 years. So there's a lot of people who spent their childhood playing the Sims games, and they have a loyalty to the brand itself, which is an important conversation that we should have, is about the communities behind these games. Obviously, The Sims has been around for a while. It has a very strong community of players, very passionate and loyal players. Inzoi has been around for a bit over a year at this point. And then Paralives, which just released a couple months ago. We already know that The Sims has a very passionate player base, but when it comes to Inzoi and Paralives, putting it lightly, right? Passionate, aggressive. They might send you some death threats here and there, you know, just for funsies.
It's just passion.
Right, right. But are there any observations that you've made about the Inzoi community or the Paralives community? Do you think they're the same, like, group of people as the Sims players?
As the Sims player, I wasn't expecting that question to end that way. That's a good one. That's very interesting, actually, because The Sims was there before, and it's like kind of the starting point, right? You get this big bag that contains all of the live Sims players, and then these new titles come in, and kind of they break in within this group of people that is already playing Sims, and they create additional division. If that was possible, because there was already some division within the Sims community to begin with. And then I think that this creates this sort of rupture that fractions the community even more. Because what I find very interesting, and I don't know if this is answering your question, but I find it really interesting that you have The Sims and then Inzoi comes and like some people kind of go to Inzoi, enjoy it. They don't necessarily say bye Felicia to The Sims 4, in my opinion. Like they don't detach themselves from the original home, you know? But then Paralives comes in and everybody else that is not willing to like go to the Paralives team, let's say, they hate on whomever is going to the Paralives team. So I feel that like you have the Sims community, it gets some people, they go to Inzoi, but then when Paralives comes out, both the Sims lovers and Inzoi stans, they hate Paralives.
That's so interesting that you brought that up because I've noticed the exact same thing, especially if you go on Reddit. There's like certain subreddits. I don't know if we should shout them out in the podcast, but
you know who you are.
You know who you are, babes. Some of you even have the same mods as each other.
See?
I've noticed that some of these life simulation subreddits are full of people who are very strongly pro one game and very strongly against another game. In this case, I've noticed a lot of really pro Inzoi fans who are constantly complaining and criticizing Paralives.
Constantly.
It's so fascinating because, look, obviously, it's okay to criticize a game. It's a form of media. You bought it. You're allowed to say whatever you want about it. However, it gets to a point where some of these people in the life sim community believe that they have to be completely loyal and unwavering toward one game only, and all the other games have to be the enemy, which is just a fascinating way of thinking to me. I don't know where that comes from.
I mean, it's giving cult. I'm sorry, but it's giving cult culture.
It's really sad because when Inzoi came out, I was kind of hopeful, even though, again, I'm not a huge fan of Crafton, but I was hopeful that because there's a new game, this new competition would root out some of that cult-like behavior that we've seen in The Sims. And I was hoping
So
that
true.
the Inzoi community would, be a bit more accepting, be a bit less rabid, I guess is the word.
Yeah.
However, in my experience, I've noticed whenever I've criticized Enzoy, people act the same way they did whenever I would criticize The Sims 4. They're very, very aggressive, and I just don't get it. It's just bizarre. This loyalty to these games, every game has its fans. It's the fanboys,
Right?
I feel like Life Sim players take it to the next level, to a place it doesn't need to go. And it's like Crafton is not going to pay off your student loan debt. I'm sorry. It's not going to happen.
Right. And also Crafton has probably emptied their marketing budget. So they're not going to send you a new gaming PC because they've already done that when the game was coming out.
The shade.
The shade continues. You're just a hater with no new gaming PC, and you're just jealous that you didn't get one.
You know what, Crafton? Send me a gaming PC tomorrow, and I will give at least one compliment to Enzoy in the next podcast.
How about that?
Balls in your court, Crafton. You have to send both of us one. We know you can afford
Yes,
it.
please. Yes.
Well, I don't know if they can afford it after the Subnautica lawsuit, but
My God, that's true. Yeah, that budget is absolutely over. That's for sure.
that is another good point. Whenever we talk about the financial backing of some of these game companies, even when it comes down to the marketing, they have very different levels at which they can operate. And we
Mhm.
saw that. We've seen that for 10 years with The Sims 4, and we've seen that with Crafton. I'm really grateful that Paralives didn't go in that direction because I feel like they very easily could have used a lot of those big influencers from The Sims who have very strong parasocial followings as well to get people to come over to their game. They did use them to an extent, but they didn't buy them off, which I think is an important distinction.
Yeah, that's true. I know now when you were saying that, I was thinking maybe our listeners will be like, well, Paralives, they did send the early access copies, and we have had opinions and thoughts about that, about the people that were selected to do this. But honey, come on, you can disagree or agree with that. And I know that, for example, people from the Drama House, people from your channel. Now we can say, the people from the Overstimulated podcast because they're all here.
Yeah.
They were like, why didn't you guys get an early access copy of the game? And, you can have your opinion about that. I'm just happy I got to play it when everybody else got to play it. And personally, I didn't want to watch reviews before because I was excited to just feel it by myself. For myself. I didn't want to see it from somebody else's screen when nobody is playing but them. But whether you like it or not, and whether you think that was cool or not, it's completely different than sending them a fucking gaming PC, honey. Like, it's so different.
I agree.
And it's also so different than having a whole ass partners program that not only includes gifts. Yes, we're talking about you, The Sims 4 influencers. Not only does it include gifts, but it also includes events, it includes promo codes, it includes financial rewarding, it includes being a spokesperson for the brand, for the company. Last I checked, the Paralives team was not doing any of this. And so, well, it is very different than sending a copy like a couple of days before the early access drops. Come on.
So taking a step back and looking at the future of the life sim genre, are you hopeful for the future or are you a little bit on the negative side?
Look, if there's one thing we need today,
Jesus.
that's hope. That's positivity. I'm hopeful. I am curious to see how things are going to actually evolve because now that we've seen doors opening, we've seen competition from a company that is very similar to Electronic Arts. We've seen competition from a studio that is like the opposite of a big company like Electronic Arts. So now that we have opened these doors that are different contexts, different games, and as we just said, different communities, I'm curious to see who is going to take the next leap. Because what I do see from both the arrival of Inzoi and Paralives is possibility for more studios, more, ideas, more creative projects within the live sim genre. And to us that we've been on this planet for so long and we've been aware of all the shenanigans related to the Sims for all these years, I don't know. I just think that just that prospect for the future, I think it's a good one. I think that gives me hope. And I'm not saying that necessarily these new projects are going to succeed, all of them, or that even that they're going to be good. Some of them may fail, some of them we may never, they may never see the light of day, and some of them might come out and we don't like them, but that's okay because I think that ultimately this is going to take more and more market share from The Sims, which, as somebody who also grew up with The Sims and all of that, I'm not here like saying, woohoo, like maybe The Sims will just crash and burn and we'll have all these other options. But in 2026, honey, in this economy, that's what I want to see. I am so here for a gaming renaissance in general. I want to see indie studios thriving. I want to see creativity be back at the center. I want to see players' experience back at the center. And I wonder where innovation is going to take us too. But I'm so here for a world where Electronic Arts can do whatever they want, but they are not going to have the full monopoly of a whole genre like live sim. So that's my hope.
Perfectly said. I'm in the same boat. Competition is good for everyone. It helps all of us. It's great for the players, and it's also great for the competition. Whenever The Sims sees the Paralives team doing something that's actually innovative, they then decide to implement that innovation into their game because of that competition. So the competition is great for everyone, the players, and for the market. So I guess it might come as a surprise to the viewers, but I'm also pretty hopeful about this genre. There are a few things that I see that are red flags. For instance, I've seen a lot of live sim or live sim adjacent games that are being released that are free to play gacha games. That's a
Sure.
terrifying concept to me. I hate to see that, but I'm not really sure that I would even classify those games as true live sims. They're more like simulation games with live sim elements, I guess. But overall, I'm also pretty hopeful. However, when it comes to The Sims, I will say my hope tank is absolutely on empty. I do not see any future for that franchise, especially with all of the leaks and things we've heard about what the next generation of The Sims is, which is basically just The Sims 4 with a fresh, glossy coat of whatever
Jesus.
on top of it. EA has already ruined this franchise. And whenever we factor in the buyout and all the shenanigans with that, there's no world where I could ever get invested into The Sims again, sadly.
No, absolutely not. Which also takes us to the question that we were wondering about, right? Like, do we think that the future of The Sims would be different if there was no buyout involved in the mix? What do you think?
In a world where there's no buyout and The Sims is remaining under Electronic Arts with no Jared Kushner and no Saudi government, to be honest with you, I see the exact same future. I do think that, look, there's some possibility with the new ownership that they'll push for even more monetization, and we'll touch on that here in a bit. But I also believe that The Sims was already heading in the wrong direction, just completely. And I don't trust that the leadership on the Sims team or the leadership of EA know what's good for this franchise, period.
Period.
I don't believe that they're in touch with what the players want.
That's very true. That's exactly it. I feel that they have, regardless of the buyout, I feel that they have this like legacy with this IP. And they really, and when I say they, of course, I mean EA as like executives, decision makers. They just have this big franchise, this iconic IP that, yes, it is in their eyes, it's only like, it's either a moneymaker or not a moneymaker. That's how they see it. And that's why they lost the plot with this game, right? Because they completely removed everything that made it what it is as a franchise. People might think, well, it's The Sims, and The Sims is it's not the major focus of Electronic Arts. But honey, they're doing this with other iconic franchises. So it's not exclusive to The Sims. My impression is just that with a franchise like The Sims, what it looks like to them is, okay, this IP can help us cater to the people that we cannot cater to with our sports titles. And so we're going to use it as such, which is like, we need to milk all the money out of this other segment that we get to appeal to, as opposite to like the sports video games. And that's what it is. And that's why me personally, I had stopped playing The Sims 4 way before the buyout announcement. And even before, my journey in the content creation of it all, my frustration towards The Sims 4 and EA and their, greed and their money hunger, all of this was already evident and visible to me. And actually, I am a The Sims 2 girly, so don't come for me because I'm saying something about The Sims 2, okay? But I've said this story before. I remember when I was a kid and I would go to the store with my dad because there was like a new The Sims 2 expansion pack. And I was like, Dad, please, now they made this new one and it has like pets, for example. And I really got to have it. And I remember back then, so we're talking about the early 2000s, my dad telling me, he was like, this is their business model. They're just going to keep slicing all of the content that they can so that we keep coming here and we keep buying more. So he was like, I really don't like this thing that every other month you tell me that they have this new expansion pack coming out and we need to go and, spend the money all over again that we've already spent when we bought the base game, when we bought seasons, when we bought university. As a kid, you think, well, but I need it, well, but I want it. And I couldn't see the problem. But he clocked it back then because that practice, which maybe once upon a time could be justified because of the way games were made, they couldn't implement everything right away. So they had to give you extra features and they had to give them to you in a CD. So you had to buy it again. That's true. But ultimately, what we have today is just that practice, which thanks to today's technology, by the way, is not even needed. Like they don't have to do it this way. They could update the game for free.
Right.
But it's that practice on absolute steroids.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was already exploitative to a degree with The Sims 1. The fact that a game had 7 or 8 expansions, or however many The Sims 1 had back then, that was unprecedented at the time, which is ironic because The Sims 1 was developed as a critique of capitalism and consumer society.
Right.
However, it has only gotten worse and worse with every iteration. The difference to me is that, and I think you would agree on this, is that The Sims 1, 2, and 3, the quality was there. The games were actually good.
That's
the
it.
expansions, while they were expensive, while they were excessive, there were too many, the quality was still good. And we got the investment back. We got that return whenever we purchased it. We got the hours and hours we would spend with those expansions back. And we can't say the same thing with The Sims 4 and its numerous DLC. No game should cost over $1,500. That's ridiculous.
Insane. And for
Insane.
what? So that you can get access to the extra content that is like either cosmetics or gameplay features that are going to break gameplay features that you already had in the game that maybe weren't even working that well. The question is, do you really own it? So like you spent $1,000 on a library that you can just see on your EA app. If tomorrow EA decides to ban your account, you won't be able to access your $1,000 worth of content that is not even that good to begin with. So I think that that's another point why, buyout or not buyout, if you're still endorsing The Sims 4, if you're still endorsing Electronic Arts, what the fuck are you doing?
Agreed. What the fuck are you doing? Answer it down below. Let us know in the
Come on.
comments.
Go there, tell us,
We're
let us know.
waiting. No, but I had a similar situation whenever I was younger. Going to the store and talking to my parents and being like, hey, this new expansion came out. And they would be like, well, I already bought you that one. And I'd be like,
Right.
no, 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 no. That was the base game. We had to buy that one in order to play the expansions. I remember being flabbergasted by that concept that you had to buy this one to then go on and buy the others.
Yes. Yeah. And do you remember that the covers of the CDs, they would say requires, I remember in my The Sims 2, requires The Sims 2 or The Sims 2 like deluxe, whatever, in order to work. Because I guess
Yes.
maybe people were just buying the expansion. They had to teach people that that's how it worked, you know? That's kind of crazy today to think about it.
Yeah. It makes you realize that this was kind of a unusual practice for video games. I know that The Sims wasn't the only one because there were some other games. Did you ever play Age of Empires?
No, but I know the game.
I remember that game did have like 1 or 2 expansions, no more than that. So what was going on with The Sims wasn't an entirely novel concept, but the extent to which they did it was very unique for video games and still is. These days, there are a few games. Every time I complain about the number of DLC in a video, people always bring up Train Simulator.
Really?
What even the fuck is that? But apparently Train Simulator has hundreds and hundreds of DLC. I didn't know this.
Who's playing Train Simulator? I'm sorry, can I ask this to our listeners? Are you, baby? Are you playing Train Simulator?
Any
And why?
train otakus, out there. I mean, we don't judge. We love a nice kink over here.
Of course. No, of course. And I know that there are a lot of people that are into trains. So I'm not reading overall the trains community, but I had never heard of this train simulator. And now I find out that it also comes with like a buttload of DLCs. What are you train simulators guys doing?
There's a bunch of guys watching those trains go through those tunnels, and it just does something to them.
It rocks their boats or their
Whatever
trains.
rocks your boat or the train, exactly. But I will say, among AAA mainstream titles, The Sims 4 really is doing too much, as usual. Yeah, sadly, I don't see any future for The Sims, buyout or no buyout. And again, we are former Sims 4 players, so we're not just coming from the perspective of we've always hated The Sims 4 and never gave it a chance. I think many of us, you and me, as well as many people watching, have given The Sims 4 a chance and have invested a lot of money. I think I've probably spent $300 on the various
For sure.
DLC.
Mm-hmm.
But it gets to a point, as you were saying earlier, EA knows that they will always have this portion of players who are extremely loyal and who will buy every single DLC. They're aware of that, and they will continue taking advantage, as you said, milking that group of players who have that brand loyalty because they've been loyal to this game and they have so much nostalgia and love for it.
Yes, a lot of the current The Sims 4 players and friends and lovers, maybe they've known the franchise for longer than The Sims 4, but also I think that EA is very interested in gathering all of those people that don't really care too much about what happened before The Sims 4, because I feel that a lot of the seasoned players, just like it happened to me, for example, there is a moment in time when you, as a seasoned The Sims player, you are playing just The Sims 4 because, you know, it's the newest, is the one that is the most available to you. But then there's a moment like maybe, I don't know, maybe you just come across some content creators' videos and they're playing an older title, like whether it's The Sims 2 or The Sims 3 or even The Sims 1. And you think, oh, that looks good, actually. Like it doesn't look botched. It doesn't look like it aged poorly. And so once you give it another try, and may I suggest that if you want to do it, you don't pay a cent to Electronic Arts. But once you go back, what is going to take you back to The Sims 4? Like, no, you're just not. You're just not.
And I will say, I think there was a certain new group of players who joined whenever The Sims 4 went free to play. I think that was a very pivotal moment for The Sims 4 in particular,
Absolutely.
because they got a whole group of players, new players, who were not the veterans, who weren't around for The Sims 1, 2, and 3, many of those people witnessed how shit The Sims 4 was and how much of a step back it was, and who were turned off by it. When the game went free to play, they got this whole group of players who were brand new to the franchise, who, since it went free to play in 2020, now they have that whole other section of players who have invested, who have spent a lot of time with this game, who are extremely loyal as well. So
That's
as much
true.
as we hate a free to play game over here, but that was a very strategic and some might say smart move from EA to do that back in 2020.
Which was also 2020. So, pandemic hits, The Sims 4 is free to play. I'm not gonna lie, I think that was the time that I also was like, okay, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna play The Sims 4 again. Back then, during the pandemic, I actually got myself like a kind of a complete edition of what was out at the time, and that was free to play for me.
And to your point, The Sims 4 is also the most accessible of the games, because we can't forget they have the console players.
True.
So look, from a business perspective, there's a lot of smart decisions, and I'm using smart in quotes for anyone who's just listening. Going free to play, putting the game on console, those were smart business decisions. However, we've seen EA make a lot of decisions with this game that ultimately are turning a lot of people off. So going back to the beginning of this discussion, in the ranking of life sim games,
Right.
The Sims 4 is dead last for me. I'm going to go number 1, Paralives. Number 2, Enjoy. Second place isn't bad. That's silver. And number 3, I'm going with Sims 4. What do you think?
Yes, 100%. Because also, The Sims 4 takes the last position. Because I feel that with these newer titles, first of all, it's something different, but also there might be room for improvement. Like going back to the whole Inzoi talk, I have seen comments from a lot of people saying, I went back to it and I found it to be improved. I feel that
Yeah,
there's no improvement for The Sims 4. The only improvement right
exactly.
now would be to call the time of death and just ship the latest version of it, call it a day. And honestly, EA, if you're listening, in my opinion, sell the franchise completely, like get rid of it so that maybe we'll see some other studios doing something with it. I don't know, maybe this is controversial, but it is my take. I just get rid of The Sims from your portfolio, EA, and then we'll see what happens to it.
I think they should take that advice, honestly. I think that is literally the smartest thing they could do. I don't know who they would sell it to, but that is probably the best thing they could do for this IP at the moment, because they've already alienated all the people who were turned off by the egregious monetization. They've alienated people with how broken the game is. They've alienated with beating this dead horse for 12 years. They've alienated people with the buyout. There's no direction you can go, especially with a Sims 4.5 or the Sims 4 remastered, whatever the hell they're doing now.
Horror.
It's an insult. There's no other direction they could go other than down. So selling the IP, I think, is the smartest thing they could do for this franchise, honestly. And do you think there's a possibility that the new owners could do that?
This is my vision of what might happen. And I've been right before, so could be a
We love a nice
premonition.
vision. Yeah, a vision, a premonition, a nice dream. We love that over here.
Maybe we need to dream about it, and then it's actually going to happen. We've
Okay.
we've done that before.
We'll do some manifesting after the episode.
To the new owners, let's be clear: The Sims, not a priority, not something they're considering. They're not even thinking about, oh, The Sims is too queer, and so we're gonna delete it. Like that's not how they're evaluating this deal. I think that the main interest is not only the capabilities of Electronic Arts as a gigantic tech company, because to us they are gaming, but to the world, like this is a tech corporation. So that's very important to the new owners. But the second place for them in terms of like importance, I feel it goes to the sports titles because of their already established connections to esports, to the sports world in general. And I'm talking, of course, about the PIF, the Saudi Arabian government fund. A franchise like The Sims, it's probably going to be evaluated for the amount of profit that it can bring. And if and when it stops being satisfying as a moneymaker, they might think, and maybe if they get like an offer or if they get some interest from the market, they might even consider it. I just think that what they see is, can we make money? And if we can, we'll keep them. But if the money that these franchises make us is not enough, whatever, we'll let them go. Like they have no secondary interest, or at least they don't have as much interest as they have in the sports title. So we might see that happen, actually.
That's an excellent point. I agree. As long as The Sims 4 remains profitable, or The Sims as a franchise, because we're going to have spinoffs allegedly, Sims Project Renee or whatever. There's like mobile games. I have no idea what's going on, but free play. As long as the franchise itself remains profitable, there's no chance in hell they're going to sell it. However, you're right that I don't think The Sims is a priority for them. And if it gets to a point where the game is too expensive to maintain, or they get to a point where the popularity is waning and it's just not there, they lose a lot of the player base, I do think there is a possibility that they could sell it. That would probably be the smartest thing to do for them because, like you said, they don't care about The Sims IP.
So if maybe this, I'm just saying, but if the Sims players, started thinking, considering that it's time to stop buying, maybe there could be the chance to see a new future for this franchise that so many people care for so much.
That's the only way I could see myself ever investing my time and money into this franchise again. Boycott EA, folks.
Boycott EA. Do what the hot people are doing. Babe, do you know what else the hot people are doing? They're listening to the Overstimulated podcast. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere because we'll be back with more after the break.
Welcome back to the best show in the known universe. Before the break, we were discussing some of our fond memories of going to the store and picking out the latest video game. And unfortunately, there is one massive company out there who wants to crush those dreams. And they go by the little name of Sony.
Sony. Honey, you know this brand because, who hasn't grown up seeing the Sony brand anywhere and everywhere, regardless of what you were doing, whether it was like watching a movie or playing PlayStation, right? They are not doing great, and their player base, their fans, they are pissed. Pissed.
If I didn't know any better, I would think Sony secretly hates our guts because the stuff they've been pulling lately, it is not looking good for us players. In fact, I heard there's some people calling for a boycott of Sony, right?
Yeah, they're so hot. Who knew that there were hot people in that community too?
Jesus.
Reeling it back, what did Sony do to piss people off so that they're like, you know what? I'm not touching anything. Like, I'm staying away from all of this. You can forget about my money, which is like the mindset that we need if we want to achieve something, even if it's just like showing disapproval, which is what the Sony community, I think, is trying to do here. But it's also just they're disappointed. And it makes sense because this is a very, very big thing. So Sony has recently announced that they are going to stop the production of physical media, meaning you buy the game and it comes with the disc, and then you put the disc in the console and you play, and the disc stays with you, just like what we were saying before, right? This announcement came not too long after Sony decided to pull over 500 titles, movie titles, from the Sony library. So first, this is how the story goes. People are like, I have these movies in the library that I can watch. And Sony's like, bye, we're removing 100 of them because guess what? You don't own anything and we can take them out whenever we want to. So suffer, Sony. Suffer. You haven't suffered enough. Clearly.
They removed 500 movies from what? Was it like the PlayStation?
It's like the PlayStation library. I guess
Yeah.
you can download them to watch them or
Yeah. A lot of people watch movies on their PlayStation. Yeah.
right? So they were gone. And, you know, when they do something like that, people, they're like, what is going on exactly? But they might also not pay too much attention. Like maybe you're not using that feature. You're just using the console to play. And so maybe this wasn't affecting as many people. But it becomes very relevant when days later, Sony makes the announcement that physical media, as we know it, is ending. And I think it's going to be effective as per next year or something like that. So the uproar, especially in this landscape, we have many conversations in gaming spaces about ownership, about what's the extent of your right as a customer, as a paying customer, as a consumer. What's your right to own what you're paying for when all the terms and conditions of all these major players in the gaming industry, all of their terms and conditions, they recite as first, you own nothing and we have the right to remove the service whenever we want. And Sony showed just that when they pulled the movies. So then when they announced that physical media is going to end and so everything is going to be digital, people connected those dots, right? And they were like, okay, we are seeing what's going on. And I also got to say, I feel that for console players, there is just something about having at least the option, to buy the physical
Yeah.
media. It's kind of maybe it's a little bit different than the way PC players are used to purchase and own.
Right.
It's definitely a big discussion, and Sony is getting, thankfully, a lot of shit for this, including the initiative of so many players from all over. They didn't need to necessarily go and protest outside of Sony's headquarters. They were all just saying, you know what? Forget about my money.
That's it. It's that simple.
It's just that
Forget
simple.
about the money.
And Sony has the audacity to cover this up and like gaslight all of the users by saying shit like, this is because we are customer centric and we know that customers prefer how easy it is to engage with digital only. And somehow they try to spin it as though this is also positive for the physical retailers. And I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
what? Like,
The corporate gaslighting. Yeah.
it's beyond. It's beyond. And at least, admit it. If they don't put it this way, they're going to put it on innovation. They're going to say that they're doing this because they're so technology forward and because they want to be the pioneers in whatever, like all of these big words. It's just so ridiculous. And extra T, Sony's CEO, after this announcement and the backlash that came with it, a lot of conversations and boycott conversations too. Sony CEO is just casually, silently, he goes and decides to sell a buttload of his stocks.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Dirty.
Dirty martini, baby. Seriously, it's almost when you read these stories, it almost feels like a joke. You can't even make this shit up.
Yeah. Is there reasoning for this that first, well, I'm assuming that their reasoning is that the demand isn't there for physical games, but I can only assume that it's also because it's a lot cheaper for them to only release the digital versions rather than print an entire physical copy, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's actually a broader discussion also to be had about physical CDs and the whole, sorry, what do you call it? Like secondhand market, right?
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
even if you go to a normal retailer, like I can go to Walmart in America, Walmart, Target, you can find physical games on sale for sometimes 50% off the price that they're for sale digitally, not to mention the whole secondhand market, right?
Yes.
Used games and how that's so great for us as consumers to be able to go and get a game for a lot cheaper than it's for sale digitally. So that's just another way for them to keep milking us, keep taking advantage of us by taking away our choice. Look, I know I'm a PC gamer. I buy most of my games on Steam. I don't even have a disk drive on my computer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But
same.
I'm also not in favor of these companies taking away, forcefully removing the choice from us as players and consumers and only limiting us to digital games. That's it. And all of the, the ownership dilemmas that come along with that. At the end of the day, choice is important and we deserve to have the option of whether to buy a physical version of a game or a digital version of a game. It's that simple.
It's really that simple. And what you were saying now about the secondhand market, that is something that really, when I think about the consequences on what you said, consumers' freedom to purchase something and own it, and then if I want to resell it, that's my choice, that's my prerogative, that's something that I can do. And it's just, I can't help but envision these big companies like Sony so greedy and so overfed. We need to get whatever percentage we can from even those type of transactions. They're like, there is no way that you will make a buck, because that's the problem that they have, I think, with secondhand market, is that if you bought a game and then you sell it to me years later, the company that made that game is not going to see any cut of that transaction. The profit that they could make out of that game, they already made it when you bought it. So out of my purchase, they're not seeing anything. Even though, like, it's also so stupid because I'm buying something secondhand. I'm still engaging with the IP. I'm still engaging with the whatever it is, with the game, with the company that makes the game. They just sound so greedy when they do this. And they try bypassing it to us in these communications as something that is technology, innovation, and player oriented, when it's just Sony oriented. It's corporate centric. It's just a way to cut costs and to avoid that transactions related to their games pass through a different channel. They just want to send you to their PlayStation store, and they want that to be like the central hub for all of these exchanges of money. And that's bullshit.
Oh, absolutely. And don't forget that they have a whole subscription service for PlayStation Store, PlayStation Plus, where they have people paying every month for access to that library of games available through the
Right?
store. But the funny thing
Yes.
is, don't they still sell version of the PS5 with an actual disc player? Because I remember that version is more expensive than the no disc player option. So I wonder if they'll keep selling that version of the PS5 with the disc drive. Because how does that make any sense?
That's actually a good question. I don't know, but I do know that along with this announcement, I think that they confirmed that, of course, there is not going to be any of this for the consoles of the future. I saw a lot of people saying, I've invested years and years in this environment, in like sticking to PlayStation, continuing to upgrade my console as new consoles came out. But they're like, now I am done, because I'm not going to buy the next PlayStation and I'm not going to buy anything else. And so many people are canceling their subscription to the PlayStation store, and they're all reporting, like, I've seen so many of these screenshots of people going to cancel, and then PlayStation is like, we're offering you 3 more months, 50% off. Just please stay with us. Ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
I agree.
Yeah, it's really corporate greed at its finest. Really terrible decision.
And also, it's so funny that this is coming at the same time as the whole GTA thing. We talked about it in our very first episode. These news just go hand in hand. And then if you check on more news, you see so many of these companies that are putting out in the universe these fabulous ideas, thinking that, somehow that these ideas are a flex for some reason. And then you also find them engaging in, those little things called like layoffs, those little things called oh, we are implementing AI technology so we can do this and that and that. Who are you trying to fool? I'm so proud for the people that are like, yeah, I'm boycotting. And you know what's the difference between what we've been seeing trying to call for a boycott of EA's properties and what I'm seeing with the Sony player base is that all I see is people saying, you know what, I'm not buying anymore. Like, this is bullshit. And usually the responses that they get are like, yeah, I get it. It was about time. This is too much. Yeah, we should all stop. There aren't people going like, oh, but poor Sony, you know, we grew up with these consoles and the poor Sony executives, like they didn't mean to hurt us when they made these decisions. Like there's none of that. And honestly,
Yeah,
that's a slay.
that is a slay. You know, there's another example of a case that really describes that dichotomy between average gamers calling for a boycott and putting their money where their mouth is and the little old Sims community. Because recently,
Hmm.
one of EA's properties, you know, EA is known for their sports games, right?
Right.
We have FC, formerly known as FIFA. We have Madden, which is football. We have NHL, hockey. I don't know if you ever played this game when you were younger. There was this game called SSX. Did you
No.
ever play it? Oh my God. It was an EA Sports game and it was snowboarding. It was so
Ah.
much fun. And they
I
had the
think
best
Sims
music.
play that in The Sims too.
You're right. Yeah, yeah. Exact same game. Yeah, because it's another EA property. They used to do that. So that was that game is actually defunct. They abandoned that game long ago. And another EA Sports property that's very popular is college football. So like a lot of the sports titles, you know, they release pretty much the same version of the game every year. There's FC 25, FC 26, FC 27. Same with college football. They just released the college football 2027 version. And much like The Sims, whenever they're releasing a new EA Sports title, they send out the early access copies to a bunch of the EA partners. So it's not just The Sims creators. EA does this with their entire creator network.
Of
So they
course,
sent out a
yeah.
bunch of these copies, of course. Got to use our influencers, got to get their money's worth, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So they send out all these copies of College Football 27 to a bunch of college football content creators, YouTubers, and the like. They play the game. A lot of them are saying this is the best version yet. And then when the game officially releases, people realize that they have implemented microtransactions into the single player offline modes of college football. I mean,
bombastic side eye, criminal offensive side eye, bombastic side eye, criminal offensive side eye.
wow. Wow. Why do we need microtransactions in the single player offline version of any game? That's ridiculous, first of all. But the interesting thing is, whenever this happened, the creators who had early access to the game came out and said, we had no idea that the microtransactions were in the game at the time of the early access. And look, we have to take their word for it. I believe them when they say this.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them were extremely pissed. Because when EA announced this, their fans, their viewers were coming back and saying, excuse me, why didn't you tell us that they put microtransactions in the game when you had the early access version? And
Of
according
course.
to them, they had no clue. I'm sure there were some limitations to the version of the game that they had, right?
Yeah.
So after this is announced and after people realize that you have to pay for certain progression elements to the game, and some of the prices for this were outrageous. Like to level
Insane.
up your team or your coach could cost like $100. That's more than the actual game costs.
Yeah, I think it was
Ridiculous.
something like between $9.99 and like $149.99. It was the maximum number was something that made me like double and triple take because I was like, wait, what?
And it's
What?
not even it's not even like the competitive online version or the competitive online mode of the game either. It's literally just you sitting at home on your PS5 or whatever playing the game. And there's this option to level up your team or your character by paying money? What even is the purpose of that? Not that I'm defending microtransactions in online games or free-to-play games, but
Yeah.
a lot of people do purchase microtransactions because they want to like show off to everyone else who's online, right? They want to have the best.
True.
But in this case, if you're just sitting at home playing offline, what even is the purpose of that? Just to like quickly get ahead in the game? It doesn't make sense. So there was this massive backlash. And one thing that I found so fascinating is that unlike we see in the Sims community, a vast majority of the most popular college football content creators who were in the EA Creator Network, they were making videos speaking up and protesting this. That is pretty amazing, right?
So refreshing.
Very refreshing to see people using their platforms to speak out against anti-consumer practices, even though, again, these people were working with EA. There were a few of those individuals who actually came out and said, if they don't remove this from the game, I'm never working with EA again. I'm never taking another sponsorship from them ever again. Because a lot of these people were getting those accusations for years of being shills and being in EA's pocket. And for some of them, like they couldn't risk their reputation. They couldn't risk, you know, the damage it was doing to them as creators, because it's very easy to lose trust in this case when someone is affiliated with a company, in some cases taking money from these companies, but those companies are turning around and doing something that's really harmful to players. So a lot of these content creators were speaking out. I know one of them, his name is Bordeaux. I didn't realize how big the college football player base was, but there's a lot of people who play these EA Sports games, and these videos were getting like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of views. This is a really big deal in the college football community. So the amazing thing is, and this story has a happy ending,
Thank
very
God.
unlike the majority of stories involving EA, this is a happy one. Within about 48 hours, because of all the pushback and the protests from players, EA reversed their decision and they removed those microtransactions from the single player offline versions of college football.
Shocker. What? Wait, what?
Shocker.
Threatening them works?
Yeah, it worked. Protesting, voting with your wallet, content creators speaking up and saying, I'm cutting ties with you. I'm leaving the EA Creator Network. It did something. Imagine that.
Imagine that.
Wow.
Now that's a dream.
Now that is a dream. I just find the comparison between what we saw with college football and what we've seen going on with The Sims 4 so fascinating to just sit back and observe, because, you know, we just had the marketplace introduced to The Sims 4. There was a lot of pushback for that. There were a lot of people who were upset, but I didn't see any creators coming online and saying, I'm leaving the EA Creator Network if you don't remove this. Did we see any content creators going online and using their platforms to speak up against this? Specifically the ones who work with EA? I didn't see any.
No, I did hear a little birdie talking about the marketplace and being outraged about the marketplace, but they always pick and choose like how they want to be outraged. It just can't be like, hey, this is crap. I'm threatening to leave because I cannot do this like this. No, I did hear a very prominent content creator from the EA network saying something like, if they were going to keep The Sims 4 Kids to be purchased with Moolah only, then I said to The Void, I guess, I doubt that she said it to EA, but then I said, I am not going to buy any more kits. That was like the maximum.
Go the distance. How about that? Like,
how about that?
Go full on, commit to your outrage or your protest, and go the full distance. Don't go halfway.
It's half-ass. Exactly. It's like, yeah, sorry, I'm outraged, but I'm outraged because the kits can only be paid with the moolah. And if I can only buy them with moolah, then I'm going to stop buying the kits. That's my plan because I'm so outraged about this. No, leave the network, threaten them, tell them that you're going to be honest and speak to your community, just like these creators did. Because after this backlash, you know what EA came out and said? They came out and said, oh, we didn't realize that we were lacking transparency and honesty with our community. But because they're such fundamental values for us, we are going to improve our transparency and honesty so these things don't happen again. Sorry.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Wow. Lo and behold, the marketplace is still there.
Yeah, of
The
course.
moolah is still there.
People are
And
still buying the moolah, redonkulous, to buy
redonkulous
some
and
botched hair.
absurd. And the fact that, no, like, I also saw one creator saying, oh, I don't agree with the marketplace, but I do want to support artists and custom content creators who are working on the
Yeah.
marketplace. Again, it's this refusal to fully commit to anything that just drives me up the wall with the Sims community. It's like, why can't we just say, this is bad for us. Let's all collectively come together and do something to stop it. How hard is it to do that?
Don't understand.
Truly.
It's like, it's almost as if they find excuses, all of their points of disapproval with the decisions that EA makes. It's almost as if they find the ways that are the furthest from actually impacting change and making a point that is clear. They just go and like nitpick their outrage. And then they get offended if they get called performative. Honey,
I mean,
sorry, this sends me to a whole different fucking universe.
oh no. Look, a leopard doesn't change its spots.
No.
There's a pattern of behavior with the Sims community of making excuses and making exceptions for every shitty thing EA does. And I guess they'll continue to do it. It's just sad because at the end of the day, it only hurts them. That's what they don't realize.
That's true.
They'd rather come up with these excuses, like you said, or circle around an issue instead of addressing it directly. They'd rather
Yes.
come up with these excuses like, oh, but the devs need to pay their bills. Like, they have families to support. So that's why they need the marketplace. That's why they need all these DLC. It's the devs. They have to survive. You guys continue to make these excuses instead of, for once, just like standing up, standing on business, doing something when you're getting screwed over. I just don't get it. That rationale, I don't understand.
Even because you have these examples with what you explained with college football. It's like, look, they did. It's not like EA went to these creators and they were like, no, how dare you? We are going to, like, I don't know, exile you to a land with no EA titles or whatever. Like, what can they do to you, first of all? No, they spoke up and EA was like, oh, we're so sorry. We didn't notice, like, which is like such bullshit. And
Of course.
but then this did affect change. So imagine if all of the favorite children of the Sims creator program, as they like to call it, because they don't want to say EA, imagine if all the favorite children gathered and said, you know what? We're telling the truth. And the truth is, this sucks, and we are not going to endorse it until it gets fixed. And if it doesn't get fixed, well, we will leave the network. How about that? Maybe this could have changed some things,
Yeah, I agree. If only anyone in the Sims community had a backbone, acted on their outrage and committed fully to it. Because we've seen, and this isn't the first example either. We saw this happen a few years ago. I think I've talked about this before. Star Wars Battlefront 2. That was another example where EA had introduced microtransactions into this game. There was a massive boycott. Everyone spoke up. They voted with their wallets. And later on, like a week or two later, EA reversed that decision. So look, EA shouldn't have done it in the first place.
True.
I'm not giving props to EA, okay? Just to be clear.
Never,
We're
ever.
not praising EA, ever.
No.
It shouldn't have happened in the first place. But it just shows us that the community, the players, do have a voice, and it is effective when we use it. So my question to the Sims community is, why aren't you using your voice? Why aren't you voting with your wallet?
Exactly.
Why aren't you taking action and doing something instead of what you are doing, which is just making excuses? It's just sad. I don't know. Do you think it's like a psychological thing? Like we were talking about cult behavior earlier. Do you think it is a cult behavior to just accept when you're getting screwed over?
Now this is making me think, because I'm like, you receive the love that you think you deserve, right? So I don't know, maybe this just comes from a fear of like, maybe if I speak up, then I will not be loved by the fabulous The Sims team or whatever, which also like, what does that imply? Like, I'm always saying all of these creators that are part of the Sims creator program, I always say like, I bet that they would do better without that whole shit. Maybe they would have more freedom, they could experiment more, because otherwise, why are you a creator? So I wish for them to get, free from this insanity, because if it brought you to a place where you feel that you don't even want to like speak up to this level of these other communities, these other EA titles communities. So we're not even talking about like some whole different company and different games. If you feel that that is like extreme, because I bet that if you ask Sims influencers what they thought of this, they would probably be like, I don't know, maybe they wouldn't say that it's extreme. They just think it's extreme when we talk about boycotting in the context of The Sims. I have no clue. But don't they see this as a success story? So why don't they think that they can also do something like that? I don't
That's a
understand.
great question. That's a really good question. I would love to know the answer to. I'm sure this will probably go down in the history books. We might be in there as Sims philosophers
Oh my
asking this
God.
question.
I love that.
Why do you continue to accept the filth you're served, the slop you're served, instead of using the power that you have to speak
Right.
up and refuse it? Why? But I'm sure you've noticed this too as a creator. The Sims community can be very, very, I don't know if cliquey is the right word, but if you say the
Yeah.
wrong thing, if you have the wrong take, you will have like a horde of people coming after you, like very angry, very upset. I think you've probably experienced this as a creator who
Yeah.
has an unpopular opinion here and there. It could be that part of the community, like people are fearful about speaking up because they don't want to be ostracized by their fellow players. That's possible.
I think you're
But
cooking. Mm-hmm.
yeah. You know what? We are going to continue this conversation over on our Patreon. So if you want to listen to a bit more tea about our experiences as Sims creators and maybe some of the times we've been ostracized by the community, head on over to Patreon. You can support us for just $5 a month and get access to some piping hot tea.
So hot, baby. You can find us on Patreon, and if not, I guess we will see you next week for more here at the Overstimulated podcast. Thank you for watching.
Jesus.